First of all, thank you, Reverend, for being here. And we're just grateful to have you. I'll do the abbreviated version as I am aware of it. Reverend Temple Hayes is a spiritual leader and an author. She's an international motivational speaker, a humanitarian and life rights advocate, shamanic practitioner, president and founder of Life Rights and Global Peace Workers. She's got a radio show called The International Spirit. She's written 3 books, The Right to Be You, How to Speak Unity, and When Did You Die? She's got a CD series. She's won many, many awards. And I would be going on and on and on to list all of the things that she's been up to. And we're grateful to have you and hear you today. So please fill in the blanks, and the floor is yours.
Oh, thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. And namaste to each and every one of you, and to our beloved Reagan, whom I had the good pleasure of, since moving to Santa Barbara, to meet. And I am just enveloped in the energy of who you are. And I am honored truly to be here as well, and to sit in this space with all of you, and just being in that energy. So I start by saying hello from my heart, and I would invite you to say the same thing with me. Hello from my heart, because that is the space that we come from today, is from an open heart, just feeling that spirit of what is possible, letting go of any agenda or any expectation, just our willingness to put our whole selves in. So there's parents that are having difficulty with their 2 children, and they invite a local pastor to work with them and their family, because these 2 boys, they are so mischievous. They're always causing trouble, and they're at wit's end, and they really don't know what to do. So they invite the pastor to come over and sit with them. And they said, we just really need your support. And so they bring out one of the young boys, and the other one stays in the bedroom. And the minister says, "Son, where is God?" And the little boy goes, I don't know. I don't know. "Son, where is God?" I don't know. I really don't know. And he runs back to the bedroom, and his little brother says, "What is it? I mean, what is going on?" He said, "I don't know, but the only thing I can figure out is God is missing, and they think we took him." I just really, really love that story, because to me, when I use the word God, it is also creator, it is also spirit, it is also life. It doesn't really matter what we call something that's greater than we are. What ultimately really matters is that we believe that it exists, and that through that infinite intelligence and energy and essence, that it gives us the energy and the vitality and the vibration that we need. I am a true believer that of myself, I actually could do very little in my life. If it were just about me, my calendar, what I know, what I don't know, or any of those things with my personality, I could go on a journey and stay out to lunch, if you will, for a very long time. But there's something within me that's greater, that is always invoking and inviting me to show up, to speak out, to express. And I know, or have a great sense, that's the reason that all of you are here. Otherwise, we would just all be, sitting by the beach, drinking a non-alcoholic margarita and not being concerned about much of anything going on around us. But we are here because we are passionate about life. I love the statement that Howard Thurman says, that don't be all concerned with what the world needs, because the world has plenty of people trying to figure out what it needs. Figure out what makes you come alive. And then when you know what makes you come alive, then that is what collectively the world needs. And I suspect in the windows that I've studied who you are and what you're doing, and I've met with some of your core team members, that you're very clear about what makes you come alive. And that's why you give the time, and that's why you give the energy. What is my story, and what impact or effect do I feel in any way, small or in any measure, do I call myself a difference maker? When I realized early on in my life that I was here to be a teacher or a speaker, or I didn't go looking for it, I would be just as happy sitting in a closet somewhere being an introvert, but it was very evident to me that I was being called for something that was more out loud in nature. And anytime I would work with a team or marketing team, we didn't use the word branding back then and all the words that we use now. But all the people that I would see would advise me that I needed to focus on just one thing. You need just one thing. And that's what you all are doing. And I would go, I don't know. That seems so boring to me, just to focus on one thing. As a multifaceted human, I love talking about spirituality. I love talking about sobriety because I survived myself. I love talk about sexuality because I've had lots of interesting stories about that, but I'm not going to talk about that today. And I could talk about shamanism. How do I talk about one thing? So in 2007, I was invited to go to a mega institute. And there was Eve Ensler. How many of you, by just raise a hand, have ever heard of Eve Ensler? She's the creator of the vagina monologues. And every amount of money at one time, it was at least $50 million. All the money that she has received from that play of vagina monologues, bringing in famous people, Sally Fields, Jane Fonda, all of them playing the characters. She has donated to helping the women in the Congo, the children that are the product of wartime. And they were having a gathering at a mega institute. They had women there from Afghanistan. One woman almost got killed getting on the plane, an attempted assassination, and she was all of 20 years old. And I'm sitting there with my, my 3-weekend stay there at Omega, and listening to all these stories about what people in the world, not my vision of the world or first world country issues, if you will, but in my window of the world, I'm listening to all these stories, and I was just overwhelmed with kind of what you were talking about a little bit earlier about the not enoughness. I was into, gosh, I'm just barely making a dent, and I'm not really doing enough, and those kind of things, because I was listening to the depth in which people were willing to sacrifice their lives or didn't know if they were going to be killed by the next morning. And I'm going, whoa, and what it did when I could, as you said earlier, get out of the ego part, get out of this, what does this have to do with me? And be in a space of just having my heart open. We were driving down the road, and I asked my wife to pull over on the side of the road, and I just felt like I was being born again in my body. It was the weirdest feelings. I would take away from it by trying to create words for it. But in that space, it just became evident to me that if I looked at all the challenges of the world, and I looked at each and every one of them, whether it's gun related or starvation related, distribution related, whatever those things are, the common thread for me has been and continues to be life rights, which means that, and the bigger umbrella of things, that we have lost the understanding and the respect for life in all living things. And that became my driver. It became my passion. It became what makes me feel alive, is to, in any way I can, call to recognition, the value of life, whether it's endangered species, whether it's children, whether it's gun use, whether it's the kind of things you're addressing with the urgent need for climate change and those kind of things. That became the driver. And my being, how I brand myself, is just simply to be a difference maker in any way that is. But when I first started with this new passion and with this new drive, I was more enlightened with the idea of looking for the big things. And, once I can do this real big project, then I'm really making a difference. But over time and through the years, I have realized that for each and every one of us to truly be a messenger of what we represent, it's important that we don't lose sight of the small things. In other words, I have had the good pleasure of featuring authors from all over the world. They've written amazing books. There are many authors that have specialized in the homeless, but do they make any intention with the people that live right down the road? You understand what I mean? Do I go around and I give talks about the homeless, but I lose sight about the fact of Tommy and Mary are going through a hard time and they live right down the street? And what can I do? At one time, I had a couple of friends visiting me in St. Pete Beach, where I lived for many years. And I was walking the ocean. And there were, on a couple of times a year on the beach there, they have the tides. I don't want to say they get confused, because I don't think nature's confused. I think that we are. But there are conch fritters that are washed so far up on the shore, they can't get back when the tide goes down. There's hundreds of them, and they're there, and they work so hard and so diligently to get back to the waterway that they literally go through like a process of quicksand. They die. Or the birds just think, easy prey. And every time, without fail, through the many years that I lived there, well, lo and behold, that would be the time that I just happened to be there for a leisure walk on the beach. But I would start gathering people to help me take the conch fritters and put them back into the water. And I had a man come up to me one day and he went, do you mind my asking you, what are you doing? And I said, well, these conch fritters, they can't get back to the water and they will die. And he said, you're just a very good person. And I said, well, I don't think being good has anything to do with it. I think it's a moral responsibility that we have to life. I think that we have a responsibility to this earth. And I think it's just natural what we're supposed to be doing. And he looked at me somewhat dumbfuzzled. And I continued to move on and take more of them in my baseball hat to the water. And, they were all saying, thank you, thank you. And in a little while, I looked down the ocean way, and there he was. He was picking up conch fritters and taking them to the ocean himself. And I think that sometimes we just need or can use a little bit of medicine of something progressing in a way that we can measure it. Like, okay, that was impactful. And that was a space of something that mattered. Not so much to get a trophy or to get a banner or anything like that. I mean, that has very little meaning. The best work that's ever done is when you don't need any recognition, whatsoever. But it's definitely that warm feeling of today, in some way, I made a difference by responding to something that was right in front of me. The good news today is that we don't have to look far. I mean, there's a way in some measure that we can find something in our hearts to respond to. For me, I have found that part of being a healer, when I look at the archetypes, when I teach students about the archetypes of shamanism, the healer, the visionary, the teacher, I and the warrior, I've come to understand how to balance my own shadow. In other words, to give you an example, the teacher archetype, when we're really balanced, we believe everything's happening the way it's supposed to. We believe the right people are present, such as the right people are here today on this call. We believe it's all happening the way it's supposed to be happening, and all is in divine order. And we truly believe that. But when we are in our shadow, we can be aware, we can be touching base into being a martyr, or being a victim, or being controlling, or becoming self-righteous, likened to some of the things you were talking about when I was first coming on. And the way we balance these things is the medicine. And I applaud all of you for the continuation of the simple things like silence, the simple things like meditation, the simple things like being out in nature, and just breathing in the air of life or hugging a tree. I think for me, in what I want people to stand for, the most important value that I can bring is to bring what I spend so much time standing for, and that's the power of life. So when I interact with people, when I sit with people, when I stand before people, I want to have that unwavering, energetic presence that says I am not worn out and exhausted and weary and giving up. You know, I am the presence of life, and I believe that I have that childlike dream of what is possible. And it is in front of me each and every day. And to me, modeling what we're striving for is often as much, if not more important than what we're striving for. So for people to recognize that we are congruent with what we stand for, I think is so valuable. And what happens with so many warriors and healers and people that can take a stand for our planet, they get caught up in the shadow work versus the reward of the work itself. They get caught up in the language of the world, like the mantra that's in our culture now is how busy people are. And do any of you ever refer to that about yourself? It's become the new vibe of I'm a victim. And the part of it is that my calendar doesn't rule me. I rule my calendar. I control my calendar. I put what's in it, or my assistant puts what's in it. So I'm not busy. My calendar is busy. And so little things like this that I can do to align to a space that, because the people that are here in these squares, you are the difference makers. And so we come together with like a tribal understanding of what can we do to support each other, to keep our energy up. And that is why I really love spiritual community. It's not necessarily that I think people need it, because you can have the greatest spiritual experiences hiking, on cruises. God is everywhere present. You don't find it in a building, you find it in yourself. But I love that tribal vibe of that kind of energy to rejuvenate myself and to mirror back with other people, that I don't want to get caught up into the limited affirmations that the world uses, that we're bombarded with. either in the news or people that have their own agenda, but that we can remember that we can either focus on that we're making progress, or we can all affirm together that we're never going to get there. And I guarantee you, both of us will be right, depending on our own perception. I remember that I was invited to speak as a keynote 2 times in one summer. You can't make this stuff up, but 2 times in one summer, less than a month apart, in communities in Orlando. And one of the people doing the booking at this particular event and venue was telling me that in the summer, they don't have many people come, and was almost like apologizing. You're going to come, but there's not that many people that are going to be there. And I said, well, I love being there. I'll stay a few days. It's all fine. No big deal. The next person that was booking me within less than a month apart was telling me that, get ready, because we have an amazing crowd. And we always have a crowd during the summer. They were less than 7 miles apart, and they were both having a very different experience. So we have the capacity with our own perception to make ourselves as right as we want to be. And for me, in my life and the passion that I have, I can only stick with the fact that I believe that all of us are making a difference collectively. I don't think that any of us have any position more important than the other one. I don't even really like it when people want to read a long bio, because you know what? It basically just says that I'm 64 years old. It's not about tooting one's horn. It's about the fact that when you hear people read all these paragraphs, it just simply means they've been around a long time. And I'm proud of that, because based upon the energy and the way I lived in the early part of my life, I have no way to explain why have even survived myself in the first place. But all that said, I think that it helps. I know that it helps when we come together and we remind each other that miracles are possible. We remind each other that the 4-minute mile wasn't possible and it became possible. I love that story of the school teacher that's asking her children in first grade. She said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And she asked, Sarah, what do you want to be? And Sarah said, I want to be the president of the United States. Well, Sally, what do you want to be? Well, I want to be a doctor. Well, Tom, what do you want to be? I want to be a senator. Well, Billy, what about you, Billy? What do you want to be? And he said, well, Miss Smith, I just want to be possible. And she said, I've never heard that before. I've never heard that before. And he said, well, my mama, she's always telling me, Billy, you are impossible. And I just want to be possible. And I draw from that a lot, that the spirit of that the miracles and magic that we have is so possible. And I tend to think like Marianne Williamson in her writing, and I'm sure you've heard it, and I'm not going to do the whole thing, but it's about that it's not really the darkness that's in our way, it's what we are capable of. And so I believe in humanity. I believe in people. Reagan and I were talking about this the last time that we met, about the love of an RV. I never thought I would love an RV. But what I loved about it more than anything, driving across the United States, was that I got to see up close and personal people throughout the country and who humanity really is. People are kind, they are genuine, they are helpful, they are supportive. And it's not the gloom and doom that we hear so much in our notifications on our phone and everywhere around us. Inherently, there's still so much magic and so much goodness in the world to be had and to be experienced. So where we do our internal work is that we work with sustaining our energy so that we can facet who we are and the various roles that we play in life. When I used to travel all over the US and the UK, I taught courses by Stephen Covey. I'm sure many of you have heard of him, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's the best Bible, I think the best Bible on the planet. But there was another guy that came along, Richard Carlson, and he talked about stress and don't sweat the small stuff. And both of these teachers would talk about the various roles, roles. I'm making sure you understand my Southern accent. The roles that we play, and that we understand in our own time management, how we use these roles in our lives, whether we are a parent, whether we're a teacher, a business owner, shaman, healer, whatever they are. And in the early stages of that practice, that would work for me. But what started happening is I developed kind of a habit, if you will, of compartmentalizing my energy. That, this is the time I would allot for my being the spiritual leader of a campus. This is the day that I would allot to being a shaman. This is the day I would be the energy healer, giving energy medicine to people and stuff like that. And one day I went, doesn't work for me. I no longer need to compartmentalize. Everywhere I go, I'm carrying the presence of life. And everywhere I go, I choose to be a difference maker. And sometimes that means working on making a difference in who I am that day, but being a difference maker in whatever is in front of me and whatever I am called to do. And that to me, and I've spoken to so many organizations and nonprofits and stuff, and I sadly meet so many people that they're so depleted and they just seem to be either weary or exhausted. And I think it's important for all of us to remember that energy doesn't come from us, it comes through us. And that was one of the most enlightening awarenesses that I ever had. And to have in whatever we're speaking about, in whatever we're doing, if it's a fundraiser, if it's a gathering, that when we are viewed and when we are perceived, is that we have a lot of energy about what we speak of and that it's felt all around us because it makes such a difference in how the whole project goes and how people want to be engaged or be part of it or not. I'll give you an example. There are churches throughout the country that are closing. There are churches across the country that cannot get people to come. There are churches across the country that cannot get young people to come. There are churches across the country that invite people to come and they talk about they don't know what they're going to do. You know what? People don't want to come to something to hear about one more area that people don't know what to do. They want to come to something that has a laser idea, collectively of consciousness, that is going somewhere. They want to be part of something that's going somewhere, that there's an electrifying presence. And we've proven it here at Unity of Santa Barbara. We have tripled in size. We have young people coming. We have work to do on the music, that's for sure. But it's because people want to be engaged with something that makes them feel more alive. Like Howard Thurman says, people want to hang out with people that are alive. You can be talking about chaos. We can be talking about crisis. We can be talking about the crisis of climate awareness and immediate changes. And we can do that and have energy in our bodies and have a passion that's unwavering. So the learning about energy and my studies with that has helped me so much to show up and stand up and to clarify and dignify the things that I believe in and that other people believe in. And that has been an awakening for me, is to understand that I don't make my own energy. I maintain it, but it comes from something greater than myself. We're not on energy rations. You know, I've been on planes with people on Monday and they're talking about how tired they're going to be on Friday. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy is what it is. It's a self-fulfilled prophecy. So it's shifting and changing our beliefs to know that we haven't been given this passion to be difference makers in the world without the energy and the ability in order to make it happen. I want to thank you for having me here today. It's a pleasure to be here. Obviously, my heart pleasure is to really be in person. I just want to go right through here and give each and every one of you a hug. I don't know if you can feel that or not, but I know that this is the way we communicate, especially globally. But yet, I still love being able to look someone in the eyes and really greet within the heart space. So I'm just claiming that I'm doing that right now because I'm here to really be here in the midst of all of you. And thank you for the invitation.